corner. We gonna touch on some topics.
It's real talking, it's real talk. It's real talking, it's real talk. It's real talking, real talk. It's real talking, real talk, yeah.
Check it out, you know, in tune.
My daddy made this beat.
Yo, check it out, you know, in tune to the dynamic duo. Reese and Ira, on the corner, real talk corner.
Real Entertainment Network.
Ira and Reese. The talk is still real. We still on the corner. We gonna touch on some topics.
SKN, we got topics. Let's have a discussion. The people got questions. The people want answers.
You don't know, we got the topics. You know? Let's have a discussion. Got the people want answers. Reese, you know, usually we come on screen, it's just you and I. But tonight in the midst we have Alvin Cardor. You know what I mean? Alvin has a story, and not no fictitious story, but one of the realest stories you're probably gonna hear right here in Real Talk Corner. You know. But first off, Reese, how you doing?
Man, I good, I can't, well, I was about to say I can't complain, but right now with the situation, I think I could complain a little bit, but nonetheless, I have health and strength, so I'm in good standing.
You good on that? You know what I mean? Alvin, what about you? Oh. Alvin, say that again?
I'm doing good.
Oh, Alvin, you gotta turn up your mic a little bit on your headphones.
You hear me clear now?
No, it's a little far. It's a little far.
How is it now?
Still a little far. You might have to go without the headphones and see how we make it, you know? Yeah, we might have to go without the headphones and see how we make it. You broke up a little bit there. There's someone has background noise. I don't know if it's Reese. Hold on. Okay, I have some too. Alvin, let's go again?
Yeah.
Okay. So Alvin is on his phone, and his phone is filtering background noise, and a part of the background noise is Alvin. So the phone is filtering Alvin along with the background noise it gets from me or Reese. So in the conversation, Alvin, there might be times where Reese and I are muted just so that your message could get out there, so you don't have a lot of background noise to deal with.
Okay.
Reese, so we're gonna try to mute our mics whenever Alvin is talking.
Yeah, man, I agree with that.
Okay. All right. So there's a crying infant. That's my son, but that's all right. So Alvin, how you doing, man?
Yeah, doing good. Just got out of work not too long. So
Yeah, say that again, Alvin.
I said I'm doing good. Just got out of work not too long, so just chilling.
Okay, Alvin, and you know, we I know you're from around the way, so we were talking, and I found out a little bit about your background, and I found out that you experienced a civil war, right? The civil
Yeah.
war in Liberia, Africa. First off, I don't know if you want to get into Liberia, where Liberia is, how Liberia came about. You know,
Yeah. That's
hey Alisa, we're talking to Alvin Corridor, who is a Civil War survivor. Alvin, do you consider yourself a survivor of a civil war? Do you look at yourself as a survivor?
yes, definitely.
Yeah. So let's get into it, Alvin. Let's get a
Well,
background on Liberia.
yeah. So Liberia was founded by freed American slaves in 1820. Um, and when Liberia was founded, there were indigenous people already living there in the land. So when the free slaves got there, they integrated with the indigenous people and they brought the American culture and the American Constitution in Liberia, and they formed Liberia to follow the American Constitution and the American um, models and policies. So Liberia has been considered as America's stepchild, because of that, because of its foundation from the free slaves. Um, so Liberia is located in the uh, western part of Africa. Is on the west coast of Africa. It borders um Ivory Coast, Sierra Leone, Guinea. Those are the neighboring countries. And then on the south of Liberia is the Atlantic Ocean. Um, so yes, Liberia is a tropical region. It has beautiful beaches, nice tropical, you know, um, region. It used to be a great peaceful place till the Civil War that came and devastated the land and the lives of the people. Um, Killed about 250,000 people. So the people that survived, yes, like me, I consider myself a survivor from the Civil War. Um, there were some people that were, unfortunate, about 250,000 people, but there are a lot of survivors out there, and some of them are still in Liberia, and some of them are everywhere around the world that have the same similar story as what you're going to hear from me today.
Yeah, and so it's it's kind of an oxymoron when we say freed slaves, but it kind of hints to the idea that when they came back, they still had a certain mentality, right? Not that of a free man, but that of a slave. And maybe because of that same trauma, they try to enforce that on the natives. Unfortunately, you know,
Right.
they what I found out was that happened for like 100 years or so, about 100 years, until Liberia had its first natural, um, well, native
Ne-
elected president, Samuel Doe, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Liberia, when Liberia was founded, a lot of the leaders that were, in positions at the beginning were all Americans, were all, freed slaves. because they had came from America. They were educated than the indigenous people there. So they were the leaders. They were the president. The president of Liberia were all Americans up till the point where like you said, over 100 years before Liberian born started becoming uh, president. So there were a lot of oppression from the free slaves against the native people because they saw them as not, kind of like being with the same standard, if you will. Um, the natives were like different from them, I guess. The slaves felt like, them coming from the U.S., they were more like sophisticated than, the people that were already in Africa. So they were kind of like enslaving them too in Africa, um, when they got there. So there was a lot of that going on as well. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, you see, you can get in whenever you want, but we're gonna get into
Yeah,
the story a little later as well as more people come in. So I just want to say, everyone share the show. You know, I just want people to hear this tremendous story of a survivor of a civil war, because the civil war was a crazy civil war. It's a crazy, crazy civil war. I tell you. Like once we start to get into the details of the civil war, I'm pretty sure some of you won't even believe it. You know, and just to know that Alvin is here with us is a blessing, because that's it's like wild. Maurice, you know, come on in.
yeah. So Alvin, one of the things that we realized is that Liberia was actually established for returning slaves, but when you look at the situation where quote unquote freed slaves were then taken in the locals of Liberia back into slavery, took them as slaves. What do you think was the mindset of individuals doing that, knowing that they were just slaves and now they're now going back to enslave other individuals?
I missed the last point there. Can you repeat your question? I got a call.
No, so like I said, you had freed slaves returning to Liberia from the United States of America, but then they went back to Liberia to then have slaves of their own. What was the impact on the country with something like that?
Yeah, so that set back a lot of the development of the natives because a lot of time when natives try to fight back or put up resistance, they will get killed. They didn't have like the weapons that the free slaves brought. They didn't have such sophistication to fight these guys back. So a lot of time they will lose. They will get murdered, they will get killed, or they will have their property just taken from them. So there was a lot of that going on. And then sometimes if they like succumb to these people, they will just use them in the house as house workers. We see a lot of um, um, stuff like that where the natives would be working in the house of the free slaves, if you will. You know, so there was a lot of that.
Peace. You good on that?
Yeah, I'm
Okay, so you know, so Alvin, what was the time period of the Liberian War?
So the war started in there was a riot that started the war, that caused the war, and the riot was in 1989. Was the arrest riot.
Peace mute.
So there was a rice riot in the country. The price of rice went up, really high, and rice is the main food that we eat in Liberia. So when the rice price went up, people got mad. They started to riot, and then that's when the problem started in 1989. Um, People were blaming the government officials and government worker for raising the price of the rice for their own benefits, you know. So that's when um, the war started. People started fighting against one another. Uh, a lot of accusations started coming about how the natives or the free slaves were oppressing the natives. So now it was the natives' time now to fight back. So um, there was a lot of ethnic groups fighting against the um, free slaves. You know, in Liberia we call them Congo. Like the American Liberians. You know, we call them Congo because they are now like original Liberians or like the native Liberians. So they have that different um, tone and different style. So we call them Congo. So the Congo people were being seen as the one that were oppressing the people and causing the price of rice and a lot of other commodities to go up and cause hardship on the people. So that's when that riot started and the war started in 1989.
Okay, so the war started because of food and not so much the politics. It was more of food.
Corruption, yes. Well, corruption was a major complaint, but when the price of rice went up, it was also blame on in the line of corruption that they're raising the price of rice so they can feed themselves or so they can put money in their own pocket. you know so government officials were being accused of that, so they were hunted down. They were people were like just killing government officials, and just hunting them down, kind of like payback. And that's how it started. you know
Okay, so after that there was an election. So all the leaders up until that point they were elected by a democratic type election where you would vote and elect them, or was they what they installed? How did politics work?
so after the war, there was a period of time where the all the warring factions agreed to have an interim government where each warring faction will have a part in that government. They will participate or they will take a certain portion of the government. So they had that peace accord and they agreed to have that interim government for some time. During that interim government was when they decided to do to prepare for election.
Mm-hmm.
The election was held in 1997,
Mm-hmm.
um, when Charles Taylor got elected. This was a free and fair election because it was monitored by international communities, and everyone that participated in the war were also on the ballot. They were also, running campaign and trying to be president. So
So
Charles
yeah,
Taylor
go
free
ahead.
and Mhm.
Wait. Liberia had multiple wars.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the first war started in 1989,
Mm-hmm.
and then, well, let me backtrack.
Yeah.
The rest riot started when Samuel Doe killed the president, William Aaron Tolbert, because of the rest riot. So that's when Samuel Doe is a native.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when the native took over when Samuel Doe killed the president for that rest riot. The rest riot, I think, was way before the '89. I think it was in the '70s, but that was the coup d'etat that killed that president. right? So when Samuel Doe came, he was the first native president now by coming into the presidency, but he came through that by executing another president. So when he came in, he ruled for some time, and then had an election that he rigged and became and continued to be president. So that whole his presidency um, wasn't in favor of a lot of people in the country. So he had a lot of enemies. So he started to also attack his enemies. He like had a lot of political prisoners. He was just executing people, like um, so he started having a lot of enemies too, and people started planning against him. So now that Samuel Doe guy got executed in 1990. So when the war started in 1989, that was the beginning of the Civil War, 1989. So Samuel Doe was executed the following year. The president, Samuel K. Doe, was executed in 1990. So when he was executed
Okay, wait.
now,
Okay, stop. Hold on. Not to cut you off, but
yeah.
Samuel Doe and Samuel Kedo are two different people.
No, it's the same person.
Okay. So
Yeah.
when Samuel Kedo got executed, he didn't just get executed, right? There are
Hmm.
claims that they ate him. Is
Well,
that true? Huh?
hold on, Ira, hold on.
Okay, hold on.
Because one of the things about Samuel Doe, when I did my research, is that he had a guy by the name of Charles Taylor, who was a part of his government at one point, and then he kicked him out. Charles Taylor then fled to the U.S. Then
Yeah.
he ended up in Libya and was trained by Gaddafi, and eventually made his way back to Liberia. So Charles Taylor is a major part of the Liberian war as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, he was the president after Samuel Kedo.
He
Yeah.
was the
So after
president after Samuel Kingo. Yes.
right after Samuel Doe was murdered in the Civil War, there was an interim government for a little bit, and then in 1997, that's when Charles Taylor got elected. So yeah, Charles Taylor was one of the major warlords during the Civil War. You know, so he was one of the major warlords in the Civil War, and then after the war, he got elected in 1997 by the people overwhelmingly. Um, but like you said, that was the story of Charles Taylor. He and Samuel Doe were really close. Charles Taylor used to work in the government of Samuel Doe, and according to stories, Samuel Doe gave some money to Charles Taylor to come to the U.S. and procure some equipment for the government. But um, Charles Taylor ran away with the money, so he didn't want to go back to Liberia with the money. So Samuel Doe told the U.S. to arrest Charles Taylor because the U.S. and Liberia had that treaty or that relation that they can um, they can work that diplomacy to get citizens extradited. So when Samuel Doe told the U.S. to send Charles Taylor back to Liberia, Charles Taylor was still in jail, but according to the news, he broke out of jail in Massachusetts and ended up in Libya. So a lot of people don't believe that. A lot
Broke
of
out.
their huh?
Yeah, like how convenient that he broke out of jail, right?
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of conspiracy behind it. People don't believe that he broke out. People believe that he was helped out of jail to go to Liberia and do that mission. You know, so when he got out of jail and went to Libya and got trained, that's when he went back to Liberia and got involved into the Civil War, and he was heavily supported by international partners during the Civil War, and that's how he was able to capture. Well, he and his men were able to capture Dole, but it was another faction of the war that captured Dole and killed him. So now I don't know. I mean, I've heard stories that um, people have been eaten, like dead bodies, the organs of human body have been eaten in the war. But I don't know if that was the case for Samuel Doe, but there is a video that um, where they show when he was being tortured, how they cut his ears, and they were cutting body parts off of him, to just torture him. Yeah, there's a video to prove that, but as far as eating him or eating his body, I don't know. I don't think so. I'm not sure.
Well, and that's the nature of the war, right? That
Right. A lot of people were involved in that, like cannibalism. There is this belief that the rebels used to believe that when they capture an enemy, or like you know another rebel, if they kill them and they eat their organ, it makes them more powerful and more strong and more fearful. It gives them that power to keep fighting the war. So that's why they used to do these things to, like um, just play with human organs. There was even some video I've seen where like um, the human organ would be used to make like a rope, like a checkpoint or something at an intersection. It was like just really really gross um, thing to see. But yeah, man, like people that was playing with that, people that was even eating that, like yeah, during the war there was a lot of crazy things that people experienced and people went through. You know.
you would know that Samuel Taylor is now, I think he had gotten like 50 years for his war crime, or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah,
Because he
yeah.
was tried.
Right. He's in the ICC now. In the in the Hague in Netherlands. So yeah, he's there for 50 years for war crimes. Um, and his son, um, Chucky Jr., is also in jail for 99 years here in Florida. So his Charles Taylor had a son. When Charles Taylor was when he was running the country, his son was really really bad. Like he was really really wicked. He used to torture people, kill people because his father was the president, and they had the power, they had uh, the resources to do whatever. So he was very notorious. But when Charles Taylor got arrested, and a lot of these wicked people that were close to Charles Taylor also got arrested, and they also went to jail. So that was the case for his son Chucky.
All right, so Reese just messaged me and told me he lost power, so that's why he's frozen. So Chucky, you
Okay.
said got jail time as well.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. So yeah, when it comes to cannibalism and how it surrounded the Liberian war, what I've seen is cases of sacrifice where some fractions would actually kill an innocent child, drink the blood of a child, eat the
Mhm.
heart, like you say, of their enemy, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, even just thinking about this, I can't even fully imagine what a scene like that would look like. You know what I mean?
Mm,
So
yeah.
after Charles Taylor became president, things got worse. Correct, right?
Yes, things got worse. There were no peace. I mean, even when Charles Taylor was president, he still had enemies fighting him. People were still fighting him in like different parts of the country. So even though he was president, it felt like he was only president for a certain region of the country because he had other people in the rural area that was still trying to come into the country and overthrow him. There was that going on, and then the country was tough. It was really hard because the U.S. had put a lot of sanction on Liberia because of Charles Taylor. So things were tough on everybody in the country. Um, just to find like food, it used to be tough. Unless you're working in the government or you're close to people in the government, you know. Um, so yeah, it was really tough. Um, yeah, and then the U.S. got involved, and that's how Charles Taylor uh, were forced to leave power.
So what I don't get is how would the US put sanctions on someone that some claim they installed, they backed during the Liberian conflict, and then to put sanctions, wouldn't that cause more pain on the people rather than the government? The people are already fighting
Mhm.
against the man, so
Right.
I don't see how sanctions would help. I mean, I probably just don't understand
Well, you see,
global politics well enough.
the thing with that, during Charles Taylor time, there were a lot of other wars going on too in the region. Our neighbors were fighting too. They were fighting in Ivory Coast. They were fighting in Sierra Leone,
Hmm.
Guinea. There were war going on around us. So there were claims that Charles Taylor was um, supporting rebels in other countries. You know, so Charles Taylor was accused of supporting the rebels in Sierra Leone for diamonds. He was taking diamonds from the rebels and giving the rebels guns and weapons. So the U.S. saw that as he, destabilizing the region, and that's why they were sanctioning him for that. So the the diamonds that he was getting, they were not being exported. Um, a lot of the natural resources that Liberia has were not being exported because of the sanctions. The U.S. felt that when Charles Taylor um, export these resources, he will use them to continue to destabilize the region. So that's why most sanctions kept coming in.
Got you.
Hmm.
Got you. And it's funny that you mentioned that part about the diamonds.
Yeah,
I know I did see there were diamonds was also be traded for like guns,
yeah,
drugs.
yeah,
So that's a part of some of the thing that's plaguing Nigeria.
yeah.
Him in Nigeria, Liberia today. So Reese is back. So Alvin, in terms of your story, you know, um, you know, not to try to take you back to anything too traumatic or anything of the sort, but the region where you lived in Liberia, what was that like during this time? Blood
During
diamonds
the,
for sure. Say that again, Alvin.
I'm asking you the question. You're saying, is it you asking about during the war, during
Yeah,
the
during
period?
the war, the region where you lived in Liberia, what was that like?
Oh man, it was crazy. I used to live in the capital city, Monrovia. So Monrovia was like a target during the war. Every rebel group were trying to take over the capital city. So the capital city was always hit with rockets and grenades and um, all the time, and then stray bullets. So there was a lot of dangers in Monrovia. So we fled Monrovia and went to another place um, in in the country, in like all the way in the rural area. So we fled, and that's why we went to seek refuge for a while till after the war, and when peacekeepers came in the country, when we came back to our place. But yeah, a lot of people like that too. Like they fled, they went to different places, different parts of the country. Some people went in the bushes, in the forest to seek refuge and to hide from the rebels. And some people crossed the borders. They went to other countries to be, a refugee, or just to seek refuge. So people fled. People were just running head to scatter everywhere. It was crazy.
A quick question.
Yeah.
What what was it like, that process of, as you said, you fled, that process of packing up and leaving? And I could imagine it's not a situation where you're packing up for 2 weeks and then preparing to move. This is something that's happening in the spur of the moment. You probably won't
Right,
be able to pack everything that you have. You probably only have a backpack worth of stuff. What was that experience like?
man. It was crazy, and um, when stuff like that is going on, when you say like right now you're sitting and you just hear like gunshots outside your house and you have to leave your house, so that panic is going on at the same time. You're afraid and you don't know what to take. So some people will have like clothes on their head. Some people will have their mattresses on their head, like wherever they go, that's where they're going to sleep. Some people will take like few things of food, for their kids or their babies. So whatever you can get, that's not going to stop you from moving fast, but at least it's important for you to, keep going for a while, is what you're going to pick up. Like I said, people would just take their bags and, find a place to go and hide. Um, sometimes you go to your neighbor house and maybe your neighbor's not there. There's a bunch of strangers also there are hiding, So it was just like uncertainty. You don't know that you're going in like where the rebels are, you know. So people are just like running everywhere and trying to run with as little as they can, that they can take with them. And at the same time too, while you're running away from guns and bullets and rockets, you might see rebels that will also try to steal your stuff that you're running away from, because there was a lot of looting. The rebels were looting from the civilians because uh, there were nothing coming into the country. So everybody was just trying to take from one another because the stores were closed. Nobody was. I mean, it's a war zone. So whatever you see is what you're gonna take. And rebels that have guns, were just taking everything from people that were vulnerable. So it was, yeah, man, it was a crazy place to be.
Okay, I was seeing if you had something else, Reese.
No, no, I have something else.
Okay.
So you spoke about the constant gunfire,
Mm-hmm.
the constant sound of ammunition going off and things of that nature. What did that then? What impact did that have on you now? Like, you do live in America. We're full of guns. You
Mm-hmm.
constantly hear of these shootings. What impact does that experience back then have on Alvin today?
Wait. Before you get into that question, Reese, I want to go back to the actual journey, from the city to the rural region. I know it wasn't a short journey, probably was a long journey. How long did it take you to get there?
Um, so it was like a 2 hours. Actually, no, it's like an hour drive, well,
S-
from where we were, but because of the war, and actually one of my aunts, well, she has passed now, but her her boyfriend at the time
mhm.
was working with the government. I think he was like a government um army man,
Mm.
armed forces. So he was the the one helping us to relocate. So he had a car and everything. So he had some soldier boys, like I think a couple of guys that were also soldiers, with him. So sometimes he would come visit us. So during this time now, he came with his boys and they took us to another place in, way in the rural area. We were there. It was
Mm-hmm.
a safe place. They had the UN peacekeepers in that region. That was like their base. So it was safe to be around there. So we fled and we were there for some time till the war was over.
Okay. Okay. So you were able. So when you got to the rural area, there was not a lot of violence over there, or you were
There
just
was
it was just
that much.
less.
Yeah, there was less, but you could still feel it, and you could still see it. I mean, there were. I even saw, like, with my own eye. I saw where we were. When we fled the capital city and went to the rural area where the peacekeepers were. In that area, I saw with my own eye rebels were beating uh some other some some guy because they thought he was another faction, but at this time the rebels used to go to people houses knocking on their doors to see if there were any boys or any men in the house,
Mm-hmm.
and then force the boys out of the house, or if, men or boy, any male, they will force that person out of the house so they can join them to go and fight. If you don't want to join them, they will beat you, and they will, like, just force you or even kill you. So the house we were in, I was like, when there was a lot of noise going on, so my aunt was looking out the window to see what was going on. And then I looked, I saw the rebel guys, like, the guy had like a gun strap and he was beating the other guy. So my aunt and my grandmom, they were like, "You guys get out, go on in the bed and hide yourself," because they heard the rebels there asking, for the boys that are in the house.
Mm.
So me and my other cousin, we both hid on in the bed, so the rebels can't come and looking in the house for us. So it was just a lot of hiding, and there's a lot of staying away just to be safe.
And
Yeah.
you would. So I know someone had asked the question if it's blood diamonds, and definitely it's blood diamonds. But
Hmm.
the this is actually like a real life blood. It's more than the blood diamond story, but there is some blood diamonds involved. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's why it was made, because of the Civil War, and the movie named Blood Diamond is um an exact replica of what was going on, because um when rebels were fighting in Sierra Leone, they were all that in that movie. I don't know if you've seen that Blood Diamond movie, but that the mine where they were digging the diamonds from was in Sierra Leone. That's not Liberia, that's Sierra Leone. So that diamond that they were digging in that mine in that movie, that's how it used to be like during the war. So when the rebels then dig those diamonds, they would transport those diamonds across the border to Liberia. I don't know if you remember in one of the movie when the guy got arrested, where he was hiding the diamond in the sheep skin. In the movie, he had like the diamond in the sheep skin or something. So he was transporting the diamond across the border, and then he got arrested. But that's how they used to transport the diamond
Hmm.
to Liberia, and then Liberia, like at that time, Charles Taylor was the president. So Charles Taylor would take the diamonds, and then used to give them guns, and then would take the guns back to Sierra Leone, and then their civil war. But yeah, that's what that blood diamond name came from, because the diamonds that they were getting from Sierra Leone was exchange of blood because of the guns that were being brought back, to Sierra Leone to fight the war.
Okay, and one person wanted to know if there were a lot of, and I still have your question. You're still gonna get to ask your question, but one person wanted to know if there was like a lot of child soldiers.
Yeah, yeah. That's another thing too. The wall in Liberia, well, in that region as a whole, because we haven't just seen this in Liberia. We've also seen this in Sierra Leone, which is a neighbor to Liberia that were also fighting civil war at the time. They were using a lot of kids, to fight the war because they felt like um, the kids were um, vulnerable. You could kind of manipulate kids to do whatever you want to do, or tell them to do whatever. So it's easy for them to train these kids to tow guns, and because the kids will not think twice about killing somebody because they are just kids, and that's that kind of mentality the war law used to really, really um, take advantage of, to fight the war. And a lot of time too, the peacekeepers, UN or the ACOMOG peacekeepers, when they encounter these kids with guns, sometimes they are, baffled about whether they should shoot the kid or not. But then the kid also have gun. The kid is probably even more dangerous than the peacekeeper. So it was just a lot of, um, a lot of like wickedness carried on by kids because they were given order by their war law. So yeah, there were a lot of kid soldiers from the ages of uh, 7, as young as 7 years old. They were called them small soldiers. Those were like the real wicked ones because they don't think twice when they carry any act of violence, or because all they know, when a kid is that young, is like they're still learning, they're still developing. So whatever you tell them is what's gonna stay in their mind. So imagine when a kid is a child soldier from 7 years old up to 14 or 15 years old. That's a bad training, or there's a lot of wicked thoughts in their head, to go and carry out. So that's why these rebels were so wicked, because they were um, it was instilled in their head from a very young age, you know.
Wow, that. So that's an amazing point. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
when they're most malleable is
yeah.
when they're taught this type of life, and they're exposed to like drugs because they were given like cocaine, heroin to hype them up, for the battle.
Hmm.
At this age is where those are participating in cannibalism. They're
Yeah.
drinking and eating the blood of their enemies, and this is a
Hmm.
tender age. So as they grow, all they know is this. So what
Yeah.
else can they learn at that point? Growing up. Um, One person wanted to know if there was ever a time that you felt like you wouldn't make it out.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, there were times where when we was traveling to our safe place, a lot of time we would see bodies on the road. A lot of time, we would see like bodies just like it seemed like people were just sitting down or sitting on their porch or just carrying out, and then they would just get hit by stray bullet, and the body would just remain there for a couple of days because it's a war zone. Everybody is trying to find food to eat or find safety, so there was just bodies like everywhere. I mean, the next moment, that would be like, you know, this could be me. You have that mentality, you have that thought in your head. Oh, dang, this could be one of us, or this could be mom, or this could be my brother or somebody, you know, because it was just everywhere. In the market, if you go in the market, you'll see bodies on the table or on the road, you know. So it was like, it could have been me, It could have been any one of my family member, but the fact that I was able to survive and be safe today is all because of the mercy of God. Because, like I said, 250,000 people died, you know, 200, more than that, I would say, even more than that. 200, more than 250,000 people died, you know. So it could have been me, it could have been anybody. So, yeah.
Man, it could have, and I'm thankful that you made it out. You're a great guy. So, you
Mhm.
know, more power to you, more strength to you. Did
Thank you.
all your family members make it out?
Well, yeah, some of them are still there in
Mm-hmm.
Liberia. Um, But during the war, one of my cousin uh, passed, but he wasn't. He didn't die because of a because he got shot or anything. But he had some medical problems, and I guess because of the sound of the guns and the heavy artillery, he had like a heart failure or heart
Oh, okay.
attack. Yeah, so he had died right around that time when the war started. So that was the only family member that was really close to me that I remember losing during the war. But other than that, a lot of other stories were just friends or other people that would say their member or their family members got killed or got shot or they saw that. But like I said, we were lucky to flee where we were to go to somewhere safe.
And you left before the war was over, right? So you would have left friends and loved ones. You would have even probably left friends and loved ones in the city, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, what was that like? Is there any friend, loved one that survived, or any that didn't survive? This any became a part of the fraction. Actually had to fight in the war.
Um, no, there was
Okay.
that uncle that helped us during the war, but he was in the army for the country, so he was a government fighter, so he was fighting for the country against the rebel. So he helped us to flee, but I had a lot of family members that were also just trying to flee. Um, a lot of us were just trying to seek refuge. I had some uncles that were in the police and in the army that helped to secure other family members. So I think that was helpful to have uh, family members that were, you know, in the government armed forces to provide such security.
All right, Reese.
So here's a question. Because of course, when you left the capital, going to the rural areas, you would have left individuals behind, friends, other family members, or whatever it would have been. Is there any person that you lost contact with that you still think about and say, "I wonder if this person made it out? Is this person alive? Where is this person? What happened to that person?"
Um, no, I mean a lot of the people that I were close to at that age were all family members, cousins, and, brothers and sisters. Uh, so after the war, like I said, we were all fine. We were all, you know, luck, thankfully, we were all safe. Um, I have been in contact with them. Um, yeah, there are some friends that uh, I don't remember. Like yeah, I've lost contact with them as well. But it's really hard uh, to even go about finding means to reconnect. But there are some of them that I have been able to reconnect with, like through Facebook. Some of my old classmates, my old friends. But yeah, I haven't really had any major um, um, lost from the Civil War.
All right. So one of the things that we hear about constantly is this thing called post-traumatic stress disorder. You have a lot of individuals who go out into war, who actually fight war, and they come back from war and they suffer from that. You now went to this situation, this traumatic event at the age of 11, 12, 13. Did this event leave any emotional scars with you? And have you ever sought therapy? Have you ever been to therapy for it?
Well, no, I haven't. That's the thing too with us, Liberian. A lot of the survivors of the Civil War, um, I will say that, well, we all should seek counseling, but we at the same time see it as weakness, to go and seek counseling for stuff like that, and but yeah, I think it does have an impact mentally. I have um, thought about it a lot. Uh, you know, as a matter of fact, because of that, because of the experiences in the Civil War, uh, I'm afraid of guns. When I see guns around, I get nervous. Uh, I've never been to a gun range in this since I've been in the U.S. I've been in the U.S. for uh, 21 years now. So there because of these things, I just stay away. I stay away from places that will bring up any kind of violence, that where people will put up guns and stuff like that. Um, I remember one time when I came in this country. I think it was like 2 weeks. Well, actually, less than a week. I was just couple of days in the U.S. My cousins and I were playing outside, and then well, my cousins were born. They were all born in the U.S. They're all U.S. citizens. So they were playing with me and my cousin. I were playing. So the neighbor, uh, one of the neighbor and my cousin got into it. So the guy was mad at my cousin, and then he went upstairs. He had a BB gun. So he was. It was a three-decker house. He was on the third floor, and we was downstairs playing in the driveway. So the guy took the BB gun and started shooting at us. So like, and he hit me once on my arm, but I didn't know it was a BB gun. I was so afraid. I thought it was like a real gun, but like because of that, the sound I heard and the way it felt on my arm, I just started screaming, and like it was just a panic, But those little things can just bring those things back. But I try to like I said, seek counseling. I have never been. And that's another thing that I think a lot of us that have survived uh, such experience should seek counseling. Um, but yeah, those things do bother me. I know for sure, and I will say, yeah, it does bother a lot of us that survive the Civil War. Because during the Civil War, you see like people, kids, just walking up and down the streets with guns. You know, that was normal. In Africa. I mean, in Liberia during the Civil War. So here, if I see people, here it's not normal, to see people walking around with gun. But if I see it like that, all of a sudden, I get nervous because I'm not expecting to see that. So that bothers me sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't go to Texas, eh? Just don't go to
Yeah.
Texas. Um, Chevron, Chevron, Chev Jeffers Lewis said that's a cultural stigma we need to overcome. She's talking about not going to therapy. Anybody who suffered something so traumatic would need some sort of therapy and shouldn't give any worry about looking weak. That would be my advice to you as well. You know what I mean? You don't have to worry about looking weak. Um, Bro, you're one of the strongest persons I'm pretty sure a lot of people come across. You see what I'm saying? Because you have survived something beyond what people's mind could really um actually bring. You know what I mean? They see it in movies and stuff, but I don't
Hmm.
think a lot of people can comprehend the struggle of living underneath those sort of circumstances. Like for me, I went paintballing one time, and while I'm paintballing, I have my little single shot paintball gun. Some guy or kid comes in with a automatic paintball.
Mm.
One of the paintball hit me on my hand and it bruised me. So I'm now post up, and next minute I just start hearing. You see what I'm saying? And that's a
Mm.
paintball, and the only thing that could run through my mind is, how do people go to war
Yeah.
hearing the real thing? Because I'm hearing a paintball gun and don't want to move because I don't want to get black and blue.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
I mean, if you have the means to go to therapy, you
Yeah.
probably, you probably should look into that. You know.
Hmm.
Um. So, Liberia right now. Um. I'm gonna let Reese question from earlier come in that he had for you.
No, well, he already answered it actually when he
Okay.
spoke about when he spoke about the guns and things of that nature.
Well, you just
But
wanted to see how we affected
y-
him. Okay.
yeah, yeah. But one of the things, do you speak to people from Liberia on a regular basis? That do you guys have conversations about what you guys went through?
Um, we do. I mean, I do speak to people from Liberia, but we don't talk about the war on a regular basis. Excuse me. We want to talk about now, like the current situation, what's going on in the country and stuff like that. Um, yeah, a lot of people that are in the country, they're trying to get past that. To get it off their mind, kind of. You know. Um, yeah, but I do keep communication with them. Um, yeah.
Have you ever heard anyone express survivor's remorse? Survivor's remorse is when you feel like you shouldn't have survived and someone else should have survived, and vice versa. Have you ever heard anyone express that? Like, why did my mother die and I had to live and stuff of that nature?
Yeah, yeah. I've heard a lot of people, cry, that cried. Um, I've heard mothers, um, cried. Why did that? Why did that babies have to die? It should have been them instead. Mothers were burying their babies, you know, um, because the babies were starved. Dying of starvation. You know, a lot of uh, a lot of that was going on, man. So yeah, mothers were in that pain and agony, like having to watch your kid die because of starvation. Uh, yeah, people had that feeling. Some people that witnessed family member being murdered in front of them in their own eyes. I've heard stories where the rebels captured, some family member, and the rebel would torture the family member in front of the other family member, or even have, say for example, have the son uh, shoot the mom or shoot the dad for whatever reason. Oh yeah, rebels used to force these acts. You know, that's how they used to initiate kids into child soldier. If you just capture a whole family, give the kid a gun and say shoot your mom or shoot your dad and then join us. You know, the kid's gonna do that and then join them, and that kid now doesn't think about mom or dad anymore. All that kid thinks about now is the rebel leader that gave him that gun. you know. So now after the war, yeah, that rebel or that child will start, regretting too. Now, why did I have to do that? I should have just killed myself instead of killing my mom or whatever. So there was a lot of, just a lot of uh, struggles, a lot of regrets.
So I want to know if there's still people being tried for war crimes and to this day for
Mm.
that war. If
Yeah,
any.
actually, right now in Liberia, that's one of the major concern is to bring war crime court in Liberia. Um, but a lot of the people that participated in the war today, those people are government officials. Those people are elected representatives and elected senators. You know, so those people are the ones that are forming the laws and changing the constitutions. So they are stopping the international um, um, the ICC, International Criminal Court, from bringing a branch in Liberia to prosecute you know, the war laws or people that participated in the war. So a lot of people don't want that court to come in Liberia, but the masses want it because they feel like um, that's the only way they're gonna have some kind of justice. Because for example, um, the rebel leader that murdered um, Samuel Doe. That guy is a senator right now. The guy that killed Samuel Doe. Samuel Doe was the president during the Civil War. The guy that killed the president is a senator right now. He's working in the government. He's a free man. You know, so Liberia is at that point where nobody knows what to do. It's just like, okay, why is this guy walking free? And that's not just him. There's a lot of other people that participated in the war. Um, they are just walking free, and the reason to that is because few people felt that if they if they go further with the war, with the court, to prosecute those people, is gonna bring back bad feelings, and other people are gonna get hurt, and it's gonna open up old wounds and all that kind of stuff. But the war is already over, and people there are a lot of victims. you know So some people have to answer some questions. Some people have to face justice, but they keep delaying this and keep delaying this because a lot of the leaders and a lot of the big names, their hands are involved in it. So that's why we are where we are, because nobody wants to take the lead to um, bring those people to justice. So the only reason why Charles Taylor is still in the Hague today is because Sierra Leone was the one that brought the the war crimes court in Sierra Leone, and they indicted Charles Taylor. So it wasn't Liberia that indicted Charles Taylor. So if Liberia, put some seriousness and bring the war crimes court in Liberia, then we'll be able to start cleaning up the country and getting rid of some of these war laws, because they are still in society today. Yeah.
Yeah, and Charles Taylor, they picked him up in Nigeria, right? He was over in Nigeria when they picked him up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're gonna get into what Liberia looks like now. I know there was a question about President Sirleaf,
Mhm.
the first female elected president
Yeah.
of Liberia.
Yeah.
The question was, when President Sirleaf was elected as the first woman in that office, how instrumental was she in really bringing peace and ending the civil war?
Well, in that aspect, she did well. She maintained the peace, uh, and she encouraged freedom of speech. Um, yeah, there was some level of security in the country. She brought back um, some dignity. You know, uh, there was a lot of stigma, on the country. So she um, worked hard to change some of that into how Liberia was viewed, how Liberia was viewed by in the international community. So she did her part. She did that, but she was also surrounded by a lot of corrupt people, that derailed some of her goals that she had for the country. But yeah, she wasn't perfect. She Because when she took over, the country was still fragile. We had just came from civil war, but I like to give her credit for that, for maintaining the peace and um, bringing ECOWAS in the country to, you know, kind of protect the peace. And we've been at peace since. I mean, even though the country is still hard, a lot of people complain that her government um, was very corrupt, and she was involved in a lot of nepotism in her administration. But she was still seen as, a peaceful leader by the international community, because she encouraged freedom of speech. She encouraged uh, uh, inclusion, you know, from a lot of opposition, a lot of those different warring factions from the Civil War. She brought them together in her government, you know. So she worked on the peace. So yeah, she did her thing. She did well.
Okay, let me come in again. So
Mhm.
there's a question here. I know there's a statistic that say about 70% of the women in Liberia has been raped. Um, I could imagine during the Civil War that number is probably even higher.
Oh
So
yeah.
by soldiers is said to have done some bad things to women and children. Was there a lot of like war babies that was a byproduct of those bad things?
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of kids that don't know their father. You know, a lot of uh, babies, that you know don't know their parents because of that. And yeah, like you said, during the war, the rip was the that number was even more higher. You know, um, like I said earlier, when the rebels capture a family, they will force families of doing uh, whatever kind of act, that they want. Sometimes the rebel will even rip the mother while the father and the son and the daughter is watching, right there, just to like, uh, I guess, torture, the family people or the family members. There was uh, a lot of ripping, and you know sometimes the rebels will even force the kids to even rip their own mom and their own sister. you know if you have gun to your head, you know the rebel telling you to do this and do that. That's what was going on. Yeah.
It's wild.
Hmm.
Um, so let's get into, unless Reese, you had any more questions about?
No, but let's do the last question that came in. This one came from Brandon.
Hmm.
Are there any things that you do to help stay in touch with your culture? Music, follow Liberian social media.
Yeah, definitely. I follow, yeah, the news, the current events in Liberia a lot on Facebook. Follow a lot of the TV stations and radio stations. Uh, they give a lot of updates. Um, there's a lot of Liberian community everywhere in the U.S. There's a huge Liberian community in Minnesota, uh, Philadelphia. Every year people come together and just reunite. Yeah, so I like to be around those events and just being around them, being around Liberians. Um, yeah.
And I hope at those events it's like a joyous time, and you know you're able. Have you been back to Liberia?
Yes, I've been back twice. I went back 2013, and
Hmm.
then I went 2017.
Okay, so what was your first trip back to Liberia like? And that would be what, 2013. The war ended in. That's 10 years after the war ended, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the first time going back to
Hmm.
Liberia, a place you never probably thought you. Actually, you were born into the war, right?
No, I was born before the war, so like I was 3 years old when the
Okay,
war.
okay, but you've known the war up for most of your life up until you fled.
Yes.
So what was that like going back to a place you once called home? You probably still see it as home. I know home is where the heart is for the first
Hmm.
time, a place where you may have had all these traumatic experiences, a place that you had to leave because of, you know, a situation out of your control. What was that like?
It was really different, Um, this it was quite different from what it was. Obviously, after 10 years, the community was different. Infrastructure had changed. Um, you know, it wasn't as tense as it used to be when I left, because I left the country in 2001, and like I said, there was war going on. So there were soldiers everywhere in the streets with guns, and people had curfew, and there was like restrictions. But when I went back 2013, it was more calm. Of course, it was peaceful. There was the president there now, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. She had the support of the UN and ECOWAS. A lot of international community was involved in her administration. It was showing her a lot of support. So things was picking up. Things was looking good. Um, yeah, things was good when I went back. Family members were good. I I went back and met my mom, my brothers and sisters. They were happy to see me, and yeah, it was fun.
All right. So you book a flight in 2013. You know that you're going to Liberia. You you go to the airport. You catch your flight. And you're headed to Liberia. At some point within an hour prior to landing, the pilot probably comes on and say, "Hey, we're getting ready to descend into Liberia." What emotions did you feel knowing that you were actually getting ready to land in Liberia?
Man, it was like I couldn't believe it. Like just in the air and looking down, looking at the atmosphere, and just like like it was just coming to me like, wow, I'm back. Like I'm back home. Um, like I was just comparing to the situation that I left, and now coming back in, seeing there's a different government, there's a different president. There's it was just exciting to see the change, you know. But yeah, it was exciting to see family members and friends, and yeah, it was fun and really really happy experience. My first time going back.
So
All right.
Alvin, oh, go ahead, Reed.
No, no, go ahead.
I just wanted to, when you left Liberia, you didn't go with your parents?
When I came to the U.S.
Yeah.
when I left.
Hmm.
Oh, you see, my father had came before us. My dad came to the U.S. in 1999, and then after 2 years, he found me, my little brother, and my mom. So after 2 years, that's when we came to the U.S. So I came with my mom and my little brother. Yeah, but there were some family members that were still, back home. Other brothers and sister, cousins, aunts and uncle. Well, I came with my stepmom actually. So my biological mom was still in Liberia at the time. You know, yeah.
So we have some questions.
Hmm.
Um, you know, Tavon. He said, so seeing how Liberia is progressing to what it is today, what is the one thing you would like to see for the near future in Liberia?
Mm. Um, the one thing that I would like to see is the the respect of the rule of law. You know, I think a lot of the the things that go on in the country is because people feel like there's no um, there's no punishment, or they're not gonna get in. nothing's gonna happen to them if they do this, because they can get away with it. They can bribe somebody. They can, they can get away with corruption. They can get away with murder. They can bribe the judge. They can bribe the police officer. So if people had fear, you know, of the rule of law, I think the country will move forward. A lot of things will be done right because people will be afraid of going to jail or getting into problem with the law. But because the country is so corrupt, um, it feels like there's no law. Even when you go to court and you know the law, but at the end, justice is gonna go to who knows the judge or who has money. So yeah, I think that's one of the main thing I'd like to see is the respect for rule of law. I think that's what's holding the country back, because even government officials and lawmakers don't even respect the rule of law. So if they are breaking the law, other common citizens, they're gonna break the law too because they feel like everybody's gonna get away with it.
You did mention that a lot of the government officials are actually some of the people that were involved with what who can be prosecuted for war crimes. So you could imagine the
Right.
regards for law. Chevron said that war was very recent, and I don't recall hearing anything about it at the time. What do you think about the media's response to these types of issues in Africa as opposed to other countries?
Um, there was some level of coverage.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, there was. Even when I came here in the States, in 2001, I used to see, the news on CNN about Liberia. Um, you know, but even way before that, BBC, CNN, they always used to carry the news. But maybe it wasn't getting much attention as other news, but there was some coverage. Yeah.
Definitely not as much as you would see
Yeah.
compared to like the Ukraine situation right
Right.
now, right?
Yeah.
Because it's Africa versus Europe. How would they really care about us? So one person wanted to know if you've listened to the Liberian Girl by Michael Jackson.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so Liberia, had a long history of war, and now it's trying to rebuild. You already talk about how the government, and we're about to wrap up. It's soon 9 o'clock, so we're gonna just lock off at 9. Um, some of the statistics that I'm seeing is not pleasing. As I mentioned, 70% women has been raped,
Hmm.
but you also have only 50% of the population being literate. What is schools like? You came here to America. You've seen what basic needs look like in terms of how Americans live, and what are some of the things that Americans and other people around the world might be taking for granted as compared to what's going on in Liberia right now?
Um, a lot of things, just a lot of basic things. Uh, to find food, like a human being needs 3 courses of meal to survive. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Sometimes in Liberia, you can only get one of those. Sometimes you can't get none of that at all. You know, and it's not like here in the U.S. where if you don't have money, the government can help you out. The government can give you food stamp, or there's a lot of benefits here. But in Liberia, it's not like that. If you don't get it for yourself, you're not gonna get it from the government. You know, so that's one of the things that is different here. Um, just basic things, man. Even electricity. Uh, there's no stable electricity. The internet is not stable in Liberia. Drinking water is not safe. There's just um, you know, uh, few people that have the means that can really survive, or really afford these things, or have access to these things. But majority of the population are still lacking these basic things. You know.
Well, you know, I don't know if Reese was trying to say something. Wait, hold on, Reese. I might have turned off your mic. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I say it's just to hear the basic necessities of life that it's unfortunate that individuals in Liberia don't have access to. Drinking water, for example. Something
Yeah.
as simple as drinking water. um, water is something that you need just for your everyday survival, and unfortunately, you don't have clean drinking water. That's it's tough. It's tough to see
Yeah.
things like that. But one thing I heard you say is that you went to Liberia in 2013. You then went back in 2017, which is a 4 year gap. Within that 4 year space, did you see any improvement in the country? Was there anything that you saw that made you feel like Liberia is on a path to redemption?
Progressive path.
Yeah. Um, I saw a lot of development going on. Not just by the government, but Liberians themselves. That had the means and the opportunity were also being part of the development. You know, I see a lot of Liberians that were in the diaspora, returning back to Liberia, building their houses, building, real estate, engaging in businesses and farming, you know. Um, yeah, a lot of Liberians are, being part of the redevelopment of the country. So it was encouraging, to see that Liberians are, you know, putting hands together to rebuild the country. So now it's like it is safe to say now, yes, the country is on a peaceful and safe trajectory where there's not gonna turn back to the dark days. So that was encouraging to see that you know people were hopeful. People were hopeful. They were building their lives and you know moving forward. Even though it's tough, there's still hardship in the country, but people are still making the best out of the little that they have.
You've been to West Point?
Yep, yep.
Yeah. West
West
Point.
Point is a was considered as a rough community. Is very very deplorable. Uh, is bad. Is on the coast. Is by the Atlantic Ocean, and where the people live in that area. The ocean has been eating away uh, the land. So it's like the ocean is eating away that part of the town. A lot of people houses get broken and just get washed away by the water. Um, that West Point area is like a ghetto. One of the slums of Monrovia, if you will.
Okay, so it's in Monrovia because I saw a piece about it where they were saying like a lot of people, and that's back in the early 2000s where a lot of people didn't have toilets, so they would do their business on the beaches, where they
Uh-huh.
eat anywhere. Like the person said, once they stepped in, you know, the smell, the stench was almost unbearable. Did you go
Yeah.
back to West Point in
No,
2017? No. Is it
no.
the
When
same?
I
Do you know?
I didn't go deep into West Point. You know, there's another place next to West Point. It's called Waterside. So that Waterside is like a commercial area. You know, a lot of small business people are in that area, and they sell their goods and stuff. So there's a market area in that place. You know, I went as far as that area, but I didn't go deep into West Point because West Point is also dangerous. You know, people will warn you a lot when you go in Liberia. They will tell you, you know, be careful with this community, be careful with that community. Don't go here by yourself. Don't go there. So West Point was another place that I wasn't trying to go, you know, by myself. So yeah, I was, you know, I
So
stay away from there.
so it's still a rough place. It hasn't
Yeah,
changed much. So if
right.
anyone here wants to venture to Liberia, where would we go in Liberia? Is there a nice area in Liberia that we could go to?
Yeah. Like I said, the beaches are beautiful. Is nice tropical region. Um, you know, Monrovia is the capital city, but it's too congested. I think if you go Liberia and you want to really enjoy your stay, you should be outside of Monrovia. You know, where it's much calm, it's cool. You know, um, yeah, and you know the beaches are nice. The water is nice and calm. I love going back. Only because you know I get to see family members and friends, but also is relaxing. You know, just being home and uh, you know, just yeah, you know, being home with family.
Nice. And
Hmm.
so it's 9 o'clock. Alvin, we're gonna lock off.
Yeah.
Reese, did you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions for Alvin, but Alvin, I would say, what you have been through is very traumatic, and especially the tender ages that you would have experienced these things. I would like for you to seek some form of therapy, some form of help. Just because there may be things that you may be trying to block out that you may need to get out so that you can get past it. But with that being said, you're a very strong individual. I've never spoken to anybody that has survived the war. And the fact that you were able to do that and you are still here today in positive spirit, it says a lot about your character. Um, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Alvin, I think Reese has said it best. One of the strongest person I know personally. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
big up yourself, Alvin, and of course, thank you for joining us here on our platform. Um, when I spoke to you and you were like, "Yeah, you lived through it," and I was like, "Are you willing to talk about it?" You were like, "Yeah." I was almost shocked that you said yeah, and how easily you said yeah. You didn't even give it any hesitation, but I'm thankful. And your
Hmm.
story is inspiring. And now Alvin, a big engineer. I'm sure mom and everyone proud and everything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, so big up yourself, Alvin, and I hope maybe one day you could actually go back to Liberia and make some changes. I know you probably would want to, but as Reese said, you should probably think about having some therapy. It's good for the soul and the mind.
Yeah.
You know how you go
Yeah.
take a physical every year? You need to
Yeah.
take a mental too. We need to start practicing mentals. So Alvin, thanks again. We're gonna lock off now. Reese, you don't know we're back again next week. And
Oh.
tomorrow night though is the topics with China Wallen and Alan Powell. So join us right here on Real Entertainment Network, the place where you're gonna get real conversation. And next time Ira put up a map. Oh, you want to see a map of Liberia? Okay. Um, while I discuss this part, Alvin, if you want to drop off, you can. If you want to stay on, of course, you're welcome to stay on. I know you did take time from your family, so
Yeah.
to be here with us. So I'm pretty sure the viewers, and all appreciate you taking the time to be here with us. And I'm just gonna
Yeah.
pull up a map because they said they want to see where Liberia is. So Liberia, like Alvin mentioned in the beginning of the show, was was where freed slave, and that's the only term I've ever heard anybody use. Free slaves of America went back to. And I don't know how you could be free and still a slave. That's an oxymoron. But it kind of says a lot to the mentality where free
I mean,
slave. Go ahead.
so you can be free. Right?
Say that again, Alvin.
I mean, they were slaves first before they got freed. So that's why, like, free slaves, free slaves.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
The ex-slaves, free
Right.
slaves. I guess the freed slaves. I guess there's no other way to say it. But they went, and during that time period, um, they chose to enslave the natives, and they did that for about 100 years until there was an election where Samuel Kado became the first native president of Liberia. Samuel Kado in himself met his demise because of the war. And here is Africa, and that shaded area right there off the coast. This is the west coast of Africa. That's where a lot of the slaves were taken from. And so that's where a lot of our ancestry came from. That's Liberia there. I don't know how clear the picture is. Evan, just want you to see it. But Alvin, there's a question. Alvin, do you any contribution slash donation drive to help the people in who are less fortunate back in your country? So is there any
No, I mean, I don't have anything up uh, right now, but there are a lot of other people that, uh, do like, uh, for the who needs uh, equipment. They buy those equipment, or maybe say, like, if a hospital needs an equipment, they help and supply those equipment. So yeah, there are other groups that are involved in, helping and giving back. Sometimes, I contribute in the Liberian community, where when they have like fundraiser to send back school materials, back to the kids in Liberia, we we volunteer and go and do that drive and raise money uh, for the kids back home.
All right. So that's that's dope, you know. Next time you're doing something like that, sure to let me know. Be sure to let me know. I would love to contribute to the cause. So thank you, Siobhan. And like I said, join us here again tomorrow night for the topics with Alan Powell and China Wallen. You don't know how they do it. Definitely gonna peace out, Alvin. They're definitely gonna rock you. They're gonna go back into the politics of St. Kitts and Nevis. Definitely, Real Talk Corner is on a different pace right now until maybe the local election. But we do have we have an interview set for next week. We're going to have Obi on the show next week, so we're gonna definitely dive into the mindset of Obi, the self-proclaimed BBB. So you don't know that it's gonna be an interesting topic because there's a lot to talk about. So Alvin dropped off. Reese, anything you wanna say to the
Definitely. To Alvin, thank you for accepting our invitation. To speak so bravely about a very traumatic time in your life and also time in the country. To also the viewers, as we know, it's a change of pace. It's not necessarily what we are accustomed to, but as you go, your body range, and we are trying to grow. But the viewers who stay with us, who are part of the comments and who actually engage with Alvin, we say thank you. Like Alan said, next week. Next week we're gonna be live with Mr. Everton Powell, aka Obi. Obi has finally decided to accept our invite to be a part of the show. So Obi gonna be here with us next week, and that one they promised to be a big show. So make sure you tune in early. Get your popcorn and your drinks ready because it's going to be a lot of fireworks. With that being said, guys, it's been real.
It's been real, and we out. Alicia, no, you got to come talk to the man. You got to come talk to the man. You got word for the man, come give the man a word. You just got to come talk to him.
Come in.
Yeah, man. You remember we talk to everybody here. Everybody.
The pressure is on, eh?
It's Tim we want to talk to.
Yeah,
we want to talk to Tim. But yeah, as we say, we out.
Yeah.
Oh man, I can't see the button. But Reese, later.
Mm-hmm.